ceremony of this beautiful book. It took 9 years to live. It took 530 years to survive. And it took heart and soul and many of our ancestors to be on the other side before that he can even be here. And it just scratches the surface of all the settler colonial lives, or what I call clan marks and plaques and monuments and all the blight that we have to slowly but surely remove off this settler colonial land so that we can give it back to our relatives who it was stolen from and continues to be. So having said that, it riffs off a little, as you might imagine, a certain kind of another book that was a tour book that was there for the settler class so that they could find out where to go across America, right? So this is an UnTour book because tourism is an extractive industry. Am I right? And it steals and takes and perpetrates. And poor people, houseless people, indigenous and disabled people cannot be in those spaces and places. So this also has the resistance marks. And one of the resistance marks is homefulness. So we'll be lifting that resistance up today. We also want to say that our beautiful sister Queen, Jessica Queen Mendez, who died from the violence of erasure and capitalism and homelessness, is one of the resistance marks in this beautiful book. And so we'll be honoring that. We'll be hearing from relatives here, and we'll be reading a little bit of this today. And we urge you, if you can, buy a copy. It is medicine. And we also challenge folks, come up with your own list of clan marks that we need to wash, that we need to pray over, that we need to uncover, and that we need to truth tell. Because that's how we take back the lies that they continue to perpetrate. So having said that, I'm going to pass it off, and we're going to talk a little bit and read a little bit and share a little bit of this beautiful medicine. And this, relatives, is the first of the relief ceremonies in so-called California. So that part.
So Poor Magazine is a poor, indigenous, disabled, houseless, people-led art, culture, and liberation movement. We launched the Stolen Land Hoarded Resources UnTours on Mama Earth Day 2016 to share the medicine of radical redistribution and community reparations with wealth hoarders and land occupiers across Turtle Island, as well as to unwash the settler lies told and sold about all of this occupied indigenous land, now held hostage by the lie of private property. They are not protests or actions, they're an urgent prayer for change.
So the stolen resources UnTours are loosely based on the Buddhan movement of India, launched by the Nova Bhave, who walked through India asking wealthy landowners to gift their lands to landless peoples. With a similar vision, Tiny led our small group of landless and indigenous people being hit the hardest by displacement, gentrification, police terror, and colonization, intentionally across the invisible and visible lines between the land and the resource hoarders, AKA very rich. Now, I have been with Poor Magazine for 10 years, and 8 years ago, I guess 6 years ago, I went on my first Stolen Land tour, UnTour. And this was a shock to me. This was like, what the hell are we doing knocking on these rich people's doors in this rich neighborhood? But we were actually coming in with love, offering what was new to me, medicine of radical redistribution. Now, we were so arrogant, in my mind, we were so arrogant enough to knock on these people's doors that we did not even know. And we might have knocked on 100 doors, but maybe 25 of those people understood that they have hoarded wealth and stolen resources. And therefore, we have our Solidarity family.
I want to say that most of the time in all of the UnTours, one of which was in so-called Beverly Hills, aka, as my friend Ian calls them, Beverly Steels, but we always had a police escort that we didn't ask for. I wonder why. So I just want you to think about how terrorizing that was, as folks who are already profiled and police harassed every day in America KKK. As we humbly and peacefully walked into these so-called wealthy neighborhoods, colonial landmarks, museum of anthro-wrongology and AKK-demia across the United Snakes, aka occupied Turtle Island, we always offer stolen resource hoarders a chance. It's a calling in, not a calling out. It's medicine. It's not an attack, it's not a protest. It's urgent medicine. We offer them a chance to begin the very serious work of decolonization and degentrification and healing. Because we know everybody is lied to in capitalism. The lie of isolation, the lie and the cult of independence, the multitude of lies about what we're told it means to make it in occupied land, while so many of the rest of us die and don't make it. We gave them that medicine. And we walked past all of those settler colonial borders that aren't seen and seen. All those so-called gated neighborhoods and those places and spaces that are never even messed with. And many of them, as we all know, is right here in Tovaangar. We offered them the possibility of redistributing their stolen indigenous territory, their occupied lands, their cash, their trust funds, to landless indigenous people in the form of what we call community reparations. Tiba's going to read an excerpt of his piece in the Clanmark book.
What are you guys doing here? She held her phone slightly away from her face, staring at us through her wrought iron fence, holding back Mochi, her giant white dog. She stared at us uncomprehendingly, seeing my mother's tattered jail suit and Auntie Frances and Uncle Leroy in his scooter with a drum tied to the back, this drum actually, turning him into a character from Mario Kart. It must have been a sight. And as she took in more and more, her eyes widened and I chuckled. Her eyes slid over us and onto Mutiado, wearing his full danza traje, as you can see here today, clad in leather and a massive kopili bursting with feathers, reminiscent of palm fronds. We're asking that you consider giving your second or third vacation home to help house people on the street. My mother, Tiny Gray Garcia, responded simply, handing her our list of demands.
We are demanding the extreme wealth hoarders and land occupiers in this town that led to the displacement and removal of so many poor and houseless people support the building of homefulness in occupied Tovaangar Nation and houseless people's guidance.
We invite all residents of this occupied territory to come to the next season of People's Score in Black August.
We humbly ask that any resident of this wealth-hoarding neighborhood who has more than one home redistribute their second or third home to people who have no homes.
And we're demanding that this colonized city give at least one of the hundreds of abandoned surplus buildings to houseless people.
We demand that this city not only defund the police, but disband it. And like us poor and houseless folks at Homefulness, never call the police.
So 6 years ago, Poor Magazine came to Beverly Hills for a stolen land hoarded resource tour. A year before that, we started these tours with the intention of bringing the richest people in this country into the conversation of radical redistribution. We realized that the only way to their doorsteps. Since then, we have been to Marin County, Park Avenue, Google headquarters, Piedmont, downtown Denver, Washington State, and many other places. Now we are back here.
I was dumbfounded by the sight of poor people of color in her neighborhood and wondered how we got this far. I saw her behind her cage that she built to protect herself from the real world. Just the same as every single house on that block. She silently accepted the flyer, and we walked away to the sound of her dog barking furiously. A passerby would see us and wonder why a small group of poor, black, brown, disabled, and indigenous folks were in Beverly Hills, were being followed by 2 police cars, a private security vehicle, and a drone, but that was just another day for us. That very process of scared, rich, white people calling reinforcements to surround us is how Louise Gongrapat, Trayvon Martin, Ahmaud Arbery, and many others were murdered. Not harassed, not beat up, but murdered. So while it is a bone-chilling thing to experience, it's no surprise. Every person whose 30-foot doors we knocked on and manicured lawns we walked through turned us down. A mixture of disgust and fear coloring their features. What we demanded was well within the abilities of every single person we talked to, in every single location that Auntie Frances mentioned. The main reason for the tours is to show these people who constantly tried to ignore us and commit what my mother calls the violent act of looking away, that we exist and that we're not afraid to meet them at their level and at their door. We are the poor and homeless people that you try to silence by othering us, with our tattered jail suits and danza gear, with our loud drums and even louder voices. We will continue to go right to the heart of wealth hoarding in this country and present them our demands.
So now I understand why we knock on those doors and go to neighborhoods of the rich and famous. I now understand, because our people, my people, our relatives are dying because of the greed, capitalism. So, yeah. Now, in this book that we're highlighting today, the UnTour, and when I got the book, I was just so amazed, because open up this book, I've been to most of these places, and I remember how it felt. I remember meeting the people, coming together with black and brown people together as we gathered. But also, in this book of landmarks and monuments is also, we have resistance marks. I not only am part of the poor family, but I'm also the visionary of the self-help hunger program. I am a Panther, and one thing I learned so many years ago was using food as a tool to organize community. So I put together, I also do mutual aid, and I've been doing it for 17 years. And so, so I have a piece in here that talks about, my experience 17 years ago providing food in a pocket park. And what happened was, I just speak off the cuff. And what happened was I moved into this neighborhood, mind you. I moved into this neighborhood, and right down the street was a pocket park of gathering of people. And there was so much chaos, so much, there was no love. And in order for me to get to the corner store, I had to walk through this park. And I realized it needed love and attention. And using food was the best way that I knew, how I remembered when I was in the Black Panther, to organize community. So there we are. Now in the Bay Area, there are so many resistance mark. Poor magazine, Hopefulness is one, of course, we know that. Self-Help Hunger Program is another. UEP Newton's plaque in West Oakland is another. And right here with y'all, we are we can consider a resistance mark. You can read more about my experience and how it relates to the resistance mark in the book. I encourage everybody to check it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Frances. Again, as our aunties and sisters are saying, that this is definitely more a form of a prayer, of words. Also, as we read from this English colonizer language and even Spanish, the beautiful thing about this book that you will find some Nahuatl, some songs. We know there are people taught not only in these linear ways of reading and writing, that we know there are indigenous people taught through song, through dance. And so, yeah, just, offering this medicine in those ways as we read these colonizer languages. And also calling out, right, the true history of the stolen land that we call America. Throughout the book, we name and explain the settler names of these stolen lands and their histories and histories that are real and oftentimes silenced, erased, and never heard of. Here's a little bit about the stolen land settlers called Los Angeles, LA. Here's an excerpt of the settler history, so-called Los Angeles. The Tongva people have lived on these ancestral homelands since time immemorial. The Tovaangar lands was more than 4,000 square miles in so-called Los Angeles basins. In 1850, the Government and Protection of Indians Act was passed. This act stole all legal power away from indigenous people. 10 years later, the act was amended to include it in the endangered servitude slavery of the indigenous people of this area. The so-called city of Los Angeles was named by Dorsey Nunes Jr. He was a historian, so-called, who was trying to call the town El Pueblo de la Reina de Los Angeles, meaning the town of Queen of Angels. So here, I'm going to stop the reading there, but again, we're trying to document and tell these stories as these colonizers keep on not only erasing our people's history, but even the nonsense of calling the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of America, all the nonsense. I think as people, as creators, as artists, it's a responsibility to create these art that challenges these colonizers.
So again, one of the other things in the book is resistance marks. And right here in Tovaangar, we have so many resistance marks that happen because of many of you. Specifically our family from Etna Street and the Echo Park Lark Resistance. And so I want to bring up Sister Carla from Etna Street Solidarity to read a little bit from the resistance mark for Jessica Queen Mendez.
Thank you, Tiny. Thank you, Core Magazine family. If you knew Queen Mendez, I invite you to come up closer. If you're part of Etna Street Solidarity, San Fernando Valley Homeless Union, if your life was touched by Queen, I invite you to join us. I'm going to read a little excerpt, and we're really honored that Queen's memory works like a flooding. And when things flood, it's actually the earth remembering. Is this, ooh, that's it. Okay.
Get over here.
That dog just jumped into Echo Park Lake yesterday. Fun fact. He's thirsting for ducks. In loving memory of Jessica Queen Mendez, a loving mother, dear friend, and community leader in the movement for housing in Los Angeles and in her beloved neighborhood of Echo Park. Jessica Queen Mendez moved to Echo Park on February 15th, 1991 at the age of 3. Echo Park was her playground, her home, her sanctuary. She was the daughter of a proud and humble Yaqui woman from Sonora, Mexico, who sold corn by the lake. Her mother shares fond memories of Queen, who from a young age did everything she could to help her mother make ends meet. She never forgot her roots, and she dedicated her life to her community of Echo Park, where she raised 5 daughters. Queen touched thousands, countless lives through her powerful speeches, her dedication to helping others, and her commitment to the liberation of all people. She will always be remembered as a fierce organizer for housing justice while living at Echo Park Lake, and for her lasting contributions as a community scholar with the Institute on Inequality and Democracy. Queen was a mother, a daughter, an Indigenous woman, an undocumented immigrant, an activist, an organizer, a truth teller, a bruja, a poet, a lover, a friend. But to those of us who knew her, she will forever and always be our Queen of Echo Park. Her legacy will never be forgotten, and her life was her testimony to give. It is written on walls, in prophecy, in dreams, in parks, in the streets. She was a warrior for her people. She never stopped fighting for a better future for her children, and she never gave up. Queen was raised in Echo Park and ended up living in a tent in a community that was organizing at the lake and was part of a movement led by the poor. She organized street vendors. She made our movement more loving, more complex, more fierce, more honest. She was filled with contradictions. She saw the world as it was. She lived through it all, and she still fought for it. Dying at 35 years of age is not peaceful. It is not beautiful. It's political. Look at those of us who are dying on the streets, in our cars, of treatable diseases, of trauma, from broken hearts. Believe us when we tell you we are dying. Because we are. We're dying from the system every day, and the only hope we have is to change it. Queen passed away on the evening of May 10th, 2024, after getting evicted and being hospitalized. She is survived by her mother, 5 daughters, her baby Adrian, granddaughter, along with family and friends who will miss her deeply. Queen taught us the value of friendship and the importance of not discounting who we are as poor mamas, daughters, sisters, as we struggle for liberation. Because when we fight for everyone. And when we love everyone. Everyone that has come before us and will work in this world, and you forever changed us all. So thank you.
So we're going to hear a little bit more from the book, and then we're going to ask relatives from Etna Street to come up and introduce themselves. We're going to talk quickly about homefulness in Tovaangar. But Leroy, close us out with the book.
Media is powerful. Poor Magazine does media. And my mom knew that back in the day. My mom had me watch Porgy and Bess. And I shouted to my mom, "I'm on TV." That's the first time I saw a black disabled man on TV. That was 1979. Here we are in 2025, still researching, still writing about my black disabled ancestors. This is one of them out there, the interview I did with the Baptist church in North Carolina. He found a graveyard in the back of the church Come to find out it was the late Elisa Hill. Elisa Hill was a black disabled man, a preacher, a writer, and got terrorized by the KKK. So he took the KKK to court. It was back in, 1871? And after the court case, he knew that this government could not protect his people. So he led his people, a black disabled man, led his people to Liberia, where they toured the land and grew their own food and made up their own city. This man, Elisa Hill, did that back in 1871, a black disabled man.